Hello，你好，Welcome back，欢迎回来to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger. Today's date is February 26, 2025. Now, because it's the first Wisdom Wednesday of 2025, we are going to not get into anything too complicated. Instead, I'm going to keep this nice and light, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the romance of the Three Kingdoms. Those of you who are into Chinese literatures and histories already know what the romance of the Three Kingdoms is all about, and those of you who are not, basically, to keep it nice and short, at the end of the Han Dynasty, the Chinese Han nation, the Han Empire, was fractured into many, many little states, warring states. Gradually, three of these states, the state of Shu, the state of Wu, and the state of Wei, uh, became their own kingdom. They got big and strong enough. So three of the many states got strong enough to declare that they were the new kingdom, and then it became the war between the three kingdoms. And at the very end, the kingdom of Wei was the one that triumphed, and that led to the next dynasty. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms was a classic Chinese literature, a novel that details all the heroics and the war between the three kingdoms. It has been said that the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is one of the four greatest classic literatures of the Chinese history. Um, the other three are Water Margin and uh, Romance of the Red Building or Red Mansion, and also the Journey West. Now, Journey West is another one that a lot of people have heard about, but it's got nothing to do with what we're talking about today. So we'll not go into the other three classic novels. We'll focus on the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Now, for a lot of you that already know a little or a lot about Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you know that when you read Romance of the Three Kingdoms, when you talk about the story from the Three Kingdoms, there's a lot of great warriors, there's a lot of great battles, great strategies, betrayals, backstabbing, politics, love and hatred, and uh, mostly it's centered around great warriors and their might in battle, whether in large scale battle involving millions of people or in single combat. But today, I'm going to take you down a different path. Today, we are going to talk about some of the Chinese dishes that were invented by some of these heroes during the Three Kingdom period. This is a part of the history not many people have known, and you really have to do a deep dive to really find out this information. Okay. Now, one of these we have already talked about in a long ago episode. Okay, so we'll start with that. During the Three Kingdoms, everyone tend to think that the smartest tactician, the greatest strategist, was a person called Zhuge Liang. I know in English it often looks like Zhuge Liang, but that's not how it's supposed to be pronounced. Okay, to pronounce it properly is Zhuge Liang. Zhuge Liang uh, was the strategist and minister, the king's minister for the kingdom of Shu. He was said to be young and good looking and super, super smart. He was said to be able to predict the future, predict the outcome of every battle before the battle was even fought. He was able to think 3 or 4 steps ahead of his enemies. Um, and during one of his great campaign to go south and put down some rebellion that were caused by the southern barbarians, uh, Zhuge Liang and his soldiers came upon a raging river, and the weather was so bad, and the river was so rapid, the flow of the water was so rapid that they couldn't cross. And so the entire army was stopped at the bank of the river. After a week, the river was still uncrossable. And this was when one of the priests that traveled with the army came to Zhuge Liang and told Zhuge Liang, uh, the reason that we can't cross the river is because the river god is angry and hungry. We need to appease the river spirit. So the only way to appease the river spirit is to take some of these captives. We capture some of these barbarians that we've captured, chop off their head, and do a human sacrifice, and use their head to appease the river spirit. Now, Zhuge Liang was also, in addition to being a very smart guy, he was also very merciful and kind. So he felt there's something wrong with just outright performing a human sacrifice and kill off these captives. So he decided to try to cheat the river spirit. He asked the cook in the army. He asked the cook to make some bread and then makes them as big as human head and shaped just like human head. Then he asked the cook to make a bunch of these uh, bread and make. He would draw eyes and nose and mouth and different facial features on them, and then he threw them into the river as offering. To everybody's amazement, after he threw these head-sized bread or uh, bread head into the river, the weather calmed down and the river flow slowed down, and they were able to cross the river unmolested. That became the origin of a Chinese bun called mantou. Mantou. Now, mantou is something that when I was growing up, we ate as part of our breakfast almost every day. It's like a dinner roll, but softer and bigger. So you imagine a Chinese bun with nothing in it. It's just like a plain Chinese bun that is almost as large as a child's head. So they don't make them quite as big as a human head anymore, but it's still really big. And how you would eat it is you would rip up a chunk and dip it in your wonton soup or your soy milk, and then you eat it, and then you would have uh, hard-boiled eggs and or tea eggs or pot stickers on the side. So this is very much staple even today for Chinese people as a breakfast food. This thing called mantou. Now, man means savage, barbarian. Tou means head. Okay, so the origin of this food called savage head or barbarian head came from Zhuge Liang unwilling to sacrifice the barbarian captives, and he invented these bread things, the bread, head-sized bread to appease the spirit. So there you have it, our first food item, mantou, Chinese bun, was invented by Zhuge Liang, the greatest mind of the Three Kingdoms. Speaking of breakfast food, our second item on the list is also a staple of Chinese people's breakfast food, and this one is a little bit niche. Those of you who's never had uh, breakfast in a traditional Chinese family, you may not have had this, but you might have seen it on the shelves in the Chinese supermarket, or you might have seen it mentioned somewhere. This food is called wheat gluten. Now, what is wheat gluten? Uh, in this case, I want to explain the food before I tell you the origin story, because otherwise it won't make any sense. Wheat gluten, when you have it, usually uh, it's either deep fried or it's in the can, and it's these little pieces of dough that super chewy, and they're usually savory or marinated or spicy. They taste and the texture and taste is very similar to beef tendons, but they are just dough. Okay, and when you are eating them, they are very chewy. They you got to chew them, get all the flavor, and it's really flavorful because they soak up whatever you marinate them with, and the kind of food that take a lot of chewing and savoring. It's one of the staple foods that Chinese people tend to serve with congee, the rice porridge. Um, During the Tang Dynasty, wheat gluten became largely popular with Buddhist monks and nuns because uh, a lot of them, even though they were monks and nuns, they still miss the taste of meat, and they were having a hard time not eating meat. So a lot of them started buying wheat gluten and cooking it how you can cook meat, and it was like the earliest example of kind of a vegetarian meat for the monks and the nuns. Now, how are wheat glutens made? You can actually make this at home very easily, right? I'm going to show you. You take you make some dough. So take some wheat flour and mix it with water, and so you have this dough, and then you make them into little balls, little lumps of dough balls, and then what you do is you take these balls in your hand and then wash them. Okay, so put them in water and wash them. You will notice that some of the flowers on the outside will dissolve and fall away, and then you'll be left with a kind of a lump of slimy dough that is oversaturated. You take that out of the water, squeeze it dry, and then wash it again. And then you squeeze it dry and then wash it again. Every time you wash it, more and more of the flour will fall away, and gradually you are left with this very uh, rubbery piece of dough, and that is wheat gluten. Okay, that's when it is nice and chewy, and that now you can marinate it and then deep fry it or fry it and put some soy sauce, hot sauce, and fry it with some green onion, bamboo shoot, and ground pork or ground chicken. It's delicious. I can tell you that. If you guys try it, let me know. Okay, it's a very easy thing to make at home actually. A bit messy because you have to keep washing these little lumps of dough and then squeezing dry and washing it again. It's a little tedious, but definitely something that anyone can make at home. Okay, so how did this thing get invented, and who invented this? Again, we go back to the time of the Three Kingdoms, and this wheat gluten, something so unassuming, something so cheap that anyone can make at home, actually was invented by Sun Quan. Sun Quan, in English, some people tend to pronounce it Shun Quan, but it's actually Sun Quan. Sun Quan was the uh, king of the kingdom of Wu. Now, Sun Quan was a good-looking guy. Like historically, he's described to be a very fair complexion, have green eyes and beautiful hair. and very smart. Uh, Unlike his father and his brother before him, his father and brother were great warriors. Sun Quan wasn't too good as a well, he wasn't as good a warrior as his father and brother, but he was smarter than both of them combined. This is why he was able to survive long enough to become the king of the state of Wu. The story had it that there was one time when Sun Quan and his army were on one of their campaigns, and the person in charge of um, transporting the food for the army, the supply for the army, the supply sergeant uh, came to Sun Quan and said, "I have bad news. We got ambushed last night, and even though we fought off the attacker, some of them punctured the bags of flowers that we had on our wagon. And we didn't notice the flower bags were punctured until this morning. And last night, when it rained, the water got into the bags. So I think all the flowers are bad now." Uh, Now, any other lord, any other commanders in this case probably would throw a hissy fit and have the supply sergeant executed because, your army on the march. If your wheat supply, if your rice supply or flour supply is messed up, you have no way of feeding your army. Your campaign is over. Sun Quan did not throw a hissy fit. He put his arm around the supply sergeant's shoulder. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Calm down. Let's go take a look, huh? Let's go take a look. Maybe some of it can be salvaged. So the two of them walked over to the wagon where the uh, sacks of flowers were kept, and Sun Quan smelled this kind of sour, moldy smell, and he thought, "Oh no, this is not good." He opened the sacks carefully and he saw, yes, the supply sergeant was right. The rainwater had gotten into the sacks, and all the flour were now lumpy and clumpy and disgusting, and the smell disgusting. He took a closer look at the flour and realized that, hey, hold on. They smell bad, but they don't look moldy. They look wet, they look lumpy, they look like dough, but they don't look like they've gone bad. They just smell bad. So Sun Quan, trying to salvage the supply for his army, thought, well, these are wet already. What if we try to wash them? Maybe they're okay on the inside, maybe just smelling bad on the outside. So he ordered his people to bring tubs of water, and he himself reached into the sack and came out with a handful of these clumpy, lumpy dough, and he started to wash them in the buckets. To his amazement, after washing them, some of the flour dissolved, and he was left with this much more rubbery piece of dough, and it didn't smell bad anymore. So he said, "Hey, maybe we can cook it this way." So he ordered his men, "Okay, everyone, just like grab handful of these dough, wash them until they are this rubbery consistency." And then he ordered the uh, army cook to try to cook these. He said, "Hey, give it a try. See what you can do with these." And the army cook uh, said, "Well, I don't know, like maybe we can fry them like rice cakes." And so he got a big pot and put in some oil and deep fried these lumps of dough, threw in some green onion, threw in some bamboo shoot, and threw in some meat, and brought it over to Sun Quan. "Well, Your Highness, here's your great new invention. You want to go ahead and try it?" And Sun Quan took a mouthful and yeah, this is great. This is awesome. So he decided, well, rather than throwing away this flour, we'll cook a whole batch of these new invention and serve it to every soldier in the camp as a little treat for a hard day of marching, and everybody was happy. And from that day on, this wheat gluten had been a staple at Sunquan at table at the state of Wu whenever there's a celebration or a big award ceremony for the military. It became kind of like a royal dish. And when asked, what would you like to call your new invention? Sun Quan said, we are going to call this mian jin, mian jin. So mian means wheat and flour. Jin means something rubbery or something that's like tendons. So jin is like beef tendons because these things have the same texture of beef tendons. Those of you who have Vietnamese food, you might have had beef tendon in your pho noodle. So that gives you an idea of the consistency I'm talking about. So 面筋, wheat gluten. Okay, 面筋 technically translate to wheat tendons. I guess Caucasian people thought that's too weird, so they just call it wheat gluten. Um, was invented by Sun Quan of the state of Wu. Now let's go back to the state of Shu, where our first guy Zhuge Liang was from, because the last two items were all invented by someone, other people, the other members of the state of Shu. First, have you guys ever had Date Square? I love Date Square. And if you ever had the Chinese Date Square, you would lose your mind. It's so good. It's even better than the regular Date Square. I'm not just saying that because I'm biased as a Chinese person, but the Chinese Date Square, imagine something that's kind of like a rice cake. It's made of rice, glutinous rice. Uh, it on the outside it looks a little bit like sushi rice made into squares, and then it's infused with dates. It's so delicious. Now, who invented the Chinese date square, aka Zhao Gao? Zhao Gao date square. Uh, it This person is very famous even for those people who are not into the Three Kingdom. His name is Guan Gong. Guan Gong. Okay, the Chinese war god, the god that is worshipped by police officers, by gangsters, by massage parlors, by merchants, by banks and financial establishments. Almost anywhere you go in Taiwan, Hong Kong, or China, you will see this tall, uh, very majestic looking dude with long, beautiful beard and a red face. Sometimes he's holding a book, sometimes he's holding his great big sword. uh, that's Guan Gong. He is the god of war. He is the god of wealth. He is the god of uh, uh, loyalty and many, many things. He is just worshipped all over the place. Now, if we go back to before Guan Gong became a great warrior, before he became a general and became even just a soldier, before he even became a soldier, Guangong was a simple peasant that did a lot of odd jobs. He was a metalsmith for a period of time. He sold tofu for a period of time, and he also spent some time owning his own rice cake shop. The story goes that one day when Guan Gong was out and about, he saw this young boy who was a beggar, was passed out on the side of the road, really sick. Guan Gong, being a very kind person, decided to take this boy to the doctor, and he paid the entire medical expense and have this boy healed. And after the boy was healed, he gave the boy some uh, money and got him a job at the near orchard, tending the orchard, guarding the date tree. So he basically single-handedly saved this boy's life, gave him a little bit of money, and got him a job. Like, God, how many of us wish we could find someone like that in our life, eh? So anyway, this beggar boy was obviously very appreciative. So a year later, when he got his pay from his master also gave him a basket of dates. And because he remembered who was his benefactor, he showed up at Guan Gong's uh, rice cake shop with this basket of dates, wanting to give them to uh, Mr. Guan Gong to thank him for getting him the job. What just happened that Guan Gong was not there at the time. Guan Gong went next door to borrow some sugar or salt or something. He went next door for some business, and only the uh, attendant, the hired help, was there. So Guan Gong's hired help didn't know this little beggar boy, and so he thought that this beggar boy was here to beg for money or beg for food. And when the beggar boy said, "No, no, no, I brought these date for Guangdong, this hired help was very mean about it. And the hired help said, well, how can I trust you? Maybe you stole the date. Maybe you went to the orchard and stole the date. I should have you arrested." And the beggar boy said, "I did not steal the dates." So the two of them started arguing in the shop, and the argument soon escalated into pushing and shoving. And when they started to get physical, the basket of dates got knocked over, and some of the dates flew into the steamer that the rice cakes were cooking in. And it was around this time when Guan Gong came back and saw the two of them tussling. And Guan Gong said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! What the hell? What? Why are you two fighting?" And the hired help said, "Well, this beggar came in with all kind of wild stories. Said you helped him and stuff like that. Say he knows you personally." And Guan Gong said, "He's not wrong. I do know him. Why are you picking on my friend?" And the hired help was really chagrined, and he's like, "Oh well, I didn't know. I thought those beggar boys is here to steal from us or something." And Guan Gong was really mad, and he said, "Go stand in the corner. I don't want to see. I don't want to see you around here right now." So the hired help went and stood in the corner, looking chastened, and Guan Gong, of course, tried to uh, soothe the beggar boy. No, it's okay, dude. It's okay. Some of these hired help, they're stupid, and it's okay. Um, and he thanked the boy for bringing him the date, and they salvaged what the dates that were still left in the basket, and he also gave the boy some pocket change and sent him on his way. After the boy was gone, the Guangong looked over at the hired help and said, why are you still standing there? There's a rice cake that need to get finished cooking." And that's when the hired help remembered some of the dates fell into the steamer. And they, oh no! And he ran over to the steamer, open it up, and yeah, the dates already got cooked into the rice cake. And he's like, oh my god! And Guan Gong came over and said, what's wrong? And the hired help said, I think the rice cakes are ruined. And Guan Gong said, ruined? They look fine to me. So he took a piece and tried it. And he's like, whoa, dude, what did you do to the rice cake? It tastes awesome. And the hired help said, huh? I didn't know. When the boy and I were fighting, some of the dates fell into the steamer, and I didn't get them out in time. That's why it tastes like that. And Guan Gong clapped him on the back and said, I think you just invented something. You just help us invent something new. This is going to be awesome. People are going to love it. And so from that day on, rather than selling rice cake, Guan Gong's shop started selling this date infused rice squares that he called Zhao Gao, the rice square. And because of that, he was able to make quite a bit of money. So, if people were to ask you who invented the Chinese rice cake or Chinese date square, uh, it's Guan Gong, the Chinese god of war. Now, Guan Gong wasn't the only one that invented something cool. His uh, adopted brother, Zhang Fei, also invented something really, really cool that we still eat a lot today. Now, Zhang Fei, to most people that know the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, is that brutal, savage warrior, big and dark and undefeatable on the battlefield. Drinks a lot and speak very loud and is loud and rambunctious and impulsive and super strong, super powerful. That guy. Okay, but before Zhang Fei became a great warrior, became before he became a soldier, he actually was doing a lot better than his adopted brother, Guan Gong. Zhang Fei, when he was a civilian, owned his own butcher shop. He had big houses, uh, a couple of wives, and had quite a bit of money. And his butcher shop was said to be the best. He was said to be the best butcher in his town and a very kind person. Quite often, when people came to his butcher shop and they couldn't afford meat, he would give them meat for free. And when he heard that someone was sick and they couldn't afford to work, they couldn't work, and they couldn't afford to eat, he would show up there at their doorstep with several pounds of pork and rice and um, flour, and he was uh, really an entrepreneur and like really good at giving to the poor. And it's because of that people loved him. People loved his butcher shop. People like to come to buy things from him, and but because of that, because of his uh, fame and notoriety, and also because of his bad temper, he tended to get into a lot of fights with people who pissed him off. He had a lot of enemies, especially other butchers. Other butchers hated Zhang Fei because he was stealing all the business from them, and people only knew about Zhang Fei's butcher shop. People didn't know about other butcher, and they hated that. So one day, a couple of these butchers decided to play a trick on Zhang Fei. That day, Zhang Fei, after butchering a pig, he cleaned out all the intestines and innards and stomachs and stuff like that, all the internal stuff, and he put them in a big pot and started cooking them because uh, in China, a lot of time when poor people couldn't afford to buy actual meat, they would buy the uh, entrails. They'll buy the liver. They'll buy the stomach. But back then, those things were cheaper. Nowadays, the innards were actually more expensive. But back then, that's a like cheaper option for people who couldn't afford good red meat. And so Zhang Fei decided to cook up these entrails. They got a big pot and was boiling them. And on the other side of the kitchen, he had a bowl of ground meat that he just cut up, like he just minced, some minced ground meat. And he had some uh, dough that he already made. And he was getting ready to make some wonton and dumpling for lunch when suddenly uh, one of these butchers called him from outside and wanted to tell him something urgent. So without thinking, Zhang Fei put down everything he was doing and went outside to talk to this butcher, not knowing that this was a setup. After he went outside, the another two butchers snuck into the kitchen, grabbed the dough and the ground meat and mixed everything together. They fished the pork intestine out of the pot that it was boiling in and stuffed this mess of dough and ground meat into the intestine. Their reasoning was when people come to buy pork intestine from Zhang Fei, and then when they try to cook it and realize that it didn't taste right, it would ruin his reputation. It would make him look really foolish and bad. That when people realized there was something stuffed inside the intestine. After doing that, these other butchers ran off, and when Zhang Fei came back, initially he didn't realize what was going on, but despite looking like a big buffoon, Zhang Fei actually was a really smart guy. So when he looked around and saw that, hey, what happened to my dumpling stuffing? I was going to make dumpling for lunch. What happened to my dough? What happened to my ground meat? He started to be suspicious. So he looked into the pot and he realized these pig intestine looked fatter and more firm than they should. He fished one out and cut it open and saw, oh, Christ, the ground meat and dough, the flour, they're all inside. Now, I'm going to pause at this second, this point, and some of you who know about cooking already have an inkling of what I'm talking about. Okay, um, basically, you're looking at uh, pork intestine stuffed full of meat and dough, you're looking at a very primitive Chinese sausage. So Zhang Fei did not want to waste this food, so he took a slice of it and tasted it, and he said, "Well, this actually tastes pretty good. You know, it tastes like meat, and then you have the chewiness of the pork intestine on the outside, and it holds all the meat together. It actually tastes very good, but it can use some other ingredients. So he started experimenting with cilantro, with green onion, with garlic, with different kind of oil and different way of frying this. And in a few days, he perfected the first batch of Chinese sausages. So my friend, if anyone ever asks you who invented Chinese sausages, it's Zhang Fei of the kingdom of Shu from the Three Kingdoms period. So today we looked at the date square, the Chinese sausages, the wheat gluten, and the big Chinese bun. These are some of the food that came out of the Three Kingdoms period over 2,000 years ago. Isn't that amazing? I hope that this has been a good episode to come back with. and I hope some of you had fun. I'll be back again tomorrow for some Toy Thursday. For now, 谢谢 and 再见。